Hey, Laurel Branch Baptist Church. We are the Cheesegel family. We're out here in Papua New Guinea. We are family with Jeff, Kimber, and Mason.
And these are our three kids. This is Thatcher, he's 7, and Copeland is 6, and this is Isley, and she is 1.
So we live out here in Papua New Guinea, and we are tribal church planners. It's our job to take the gospel here to Wabaku, Papua New Guinea, a place the gospel has never been before. So we're just going to tell you a little bit about what life is like here and what kind of work we do. A little bit more about our work. This is my office, I guess. My desk chair is a hammock. My uniform is tattered clothes to match what the rest of the village wears. I guess you'd call this my assistant, although he doesn't do any work and he's kind of annoying. So our task here is to learn the language of the people of Wabaku so that we can share the gospel in their own heart language. My family and I have been in country now for about 5 years. We've learned the national language of Papua New Guinea, which is the first step to planning a mature church in an unreached people group. After we learned that national language called Melanesian Pidgin, we moved into the tribe here in the Wabaku, and we began learning this tribal language of Wabaku, which is very different and very difficult. We're in almost year 3 of learning this language, and we're getting close to the end. So we're excited because we're getting close to the point where we can share the gospel with our Wabaku friends. But before we do that, we're going to launch a literacy program in Wabaku. And the reason we want the people of Wabaku to learn how to read first is because when we share the gospel with the people in Wabaku, we don't want them just to try to remember it poorly and let the message get twisted or turned or they forget what they heard. We don't want to play the game of telephone with the gospel, with God's stories. And so we want to be able to write them down in their own language. They can go home and read it. They can read it to their kids and the message won't be lost or forgotten or twisted. So after we finish learning this tribal language, we'll launch a literacy program. Then after we have literate people here in Wabaku, then we'll start teaching through the scriptures. And the way we teach is we teach chronologically from Genesis through to Revelation. It's one big story. They've never heard any of it before, so we start at Genesis and establish who God is and the fact that He created them, and not the tribal stories that they've heard from their ancestors about how the world came to be. So it's a lot of work. We would teach for about 6 months or so every day, 4 or 5 days a week, until they hear the whole story of the Bible in their own heart language. And then those who choose to believe, trust in the message that they've heard will be our baby Wabaku church. And once we have a baby Wabaku church, then you could say the work really begins of discipling and teaching. Teach them how to act like a church, what is communion, what is baptism, those sorts of things. So we'll continue teaching principles about, okay, now that you're a believer, how are you to live, how are you to think, what does life look like? So for the next 5 years or so, we'll be teaching and discipling them, and we'll be identifying Wabaku men who can lead this church, who can take over as elders. From the very beginning, we want to work ourselves out of a job, train them to lead the Wabaku church. The ladies who demonstrate leadership qualities, we'll put them in charge of these different ministries. We want to develop these leaders. Our job is not to have the Wabaku people dependent upon us for teaching or dependent upon us for anything. We want eventually to see a healthy church here in Wabaku and have them thrive on their own, and even have them reproduce themselves in terms of planting another church in different tribes that haven't heard the gospel. So that's our purpose. The whole plan takes about 15 years. Like I said, we're in about year 5 of the process. We've learned the national language. We're working on the tribal language. Then would be launching the literacy program, teaching. After you've taught for 5 or 6 years or so, and you know that the church is healthy enough to be on its own, under its own leadership. Usually the point you know that it's time for the missionaries to leave is when the church says, hey, we need to go take the gospel to this other tribe downriver who hasn't heard it yet. So when they're ready to send out an outreach to another tribe, then you go, okay, like the church is healthy. Just like any organism, when it's reproducing, it's a sign of health. And so that's usually when the missionaries either step back to town for a few years and just watch from a distance and see how it goes. You still want to be available for help and things like that. But eventually our desire is to be able to leave entirely and trust that under Wabaku leadership, this church is going to thrive, is going to be healthy, is going to continue to grow. So that's a little bit about who we are and what we're up to. The reason we chose to leave our friends and family back in America is so that the Wabaku people can have a chance to hear the gospel in their own heart language. We want to see a mature church emerge here in Wabaku. We want to see that mature church led by Wabaku elders and deacons. We want to see that mature church spread and multiply across the jungles here in Papua New Guinea, in places the gospel still hasn't ever been to before. So that's our purpose. That's what we're about. Thanks for watching. We do have satellite internet out here in the tribe, so that's how we're sending you this video. So if you have any questions or things we could clarify, feel free to reach out to us. We're on Facebook and Instagram. You can also ask my brother Jeff, and he can get in touch with us. We do have a website too. It's reachwabaku.com. That's reachwabaku.com, and there's probably any questions you might have could be answered on there as well. So, tomani mani, awi tasiyabama, wayawerimi, obiomarami. All right, well, it's great to meet you guys. Thank you for watching our video, and you guys have a good day. Kayo!